Good evening. This time we'll call the meeting to order for the Carver Finance Committee. This is Monday, February 10th, 2020. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Seated. I'd like to thank Area 58 for recording tonight. And we have public comment. Anyone? Seeing none. Town Administrator update we're going to hold back so that we can let Cara go home. She has a sick puppy. Yeah. So she asked if she could go first. So we'll bring up the Town Clerk's office. Cara?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thanks for having us in and having us early.
Excuse me just for 1 second. Does everybody bring their copy from last meeting by any clear chance?
I did not.
Those that don't, I'll get you copies. Yes, no, maybe?
I don't have mine. I missed it.
Bear with me for 1 second.
Took it out of the
Let's see. Yeah. Cameron cleaned out my car for me, so he took my finance committee binder, and I don't know what he did with I'm like, not right now, but hopefully. Thank you, sir.
I know, I didn't take my home. Saying it's in the front seal of it.
That's what happens when you have
Thanks, sir. All set, Ellen.
And this is all set? I'll take this back. Sorry, Carl.
It's okay.
It's easier for us to follow along. Do you want a copy? You don't need a copy. do you?
No, you guys are gonna tell me what it is,
Oh,
right?
let me get
Yeah.
it.
I don't have a copy with me. Not as probably as neat a copy as what you have.
Here's the top shelf.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Right there, that line. Okay, thank you.
So this is exciting. This is the first time that we've had the pleasure with our new, recently elected town clerk. How's the office doing?
Well, the office has had some ups and downs. I lost all of my experienced office help that I had, and at the time that we went to budget, I still had them. So there are a few reflections that we have to make upon that, because presently the help that I have is totally inexperienced, and we need some help. Having 4 elections this year, it's the worst thing that could happen probably to us. But we're, ambitious and willing to learn, and have had some wonderful support staff through consultants and my association, and it's been helpful. But there's probably a
The town's
cost.
provided you with consultants, right? How's that
Little.
worked out?
I haven't had to really utilize the consultants until recently. I kind of knew it was going to be expensive, so I held off until when we really needed them for election time. It would have been silly if I brought them in, so I pretty much worked for about 3 months by myself to conserve my resources, and now it's go time. So we have early voting the last week of February. It's an unfunded mandate from the state. So the costs for that week of early voting are about $6,000. That money we should get all back from the state. I believe it goes into the general fund, and then
Yep.
it should be plugged back into my budget. So that covers 8 election workers during the week, and we're open for the normal hours of town hall so that people can come in and early vote. We'll do this twice a year. We'll do it in February, we'll do it again in October. When we do it in October, I would like to get a poll pad. It's a voting tool that I was unable to get because they're so in demand for February. But it makes the process go so smooth. We take a scanner, it scans the envelope, it records it, goes right into the VRIS. It's very, very handy. And they'll lease one to us. It's a little over $1,000, though, for that week to lease one. So that's something that would be nice to have, but maybe once we get our act together, not necessary. We'll see.
I don't think you have to worry about getting your act together so much as it's just the ramping up to,
It's
I'm
just.
sure it's a difficult job.
It is,
It's
it
a
is.
lot-
The
it's a
job
lot to
is
do.
very, very tough, I will say that. It's, every single day we learn something. I just went to a conference, it was a 3-day conference, and there were senior clerks there that tell me, every time I go to something, I'm still learning. So it's not a job that you learn overnight, it's a continuous education. What else can I tell you about? So consultants for training, that's going to be an additional expense. Like I said, we didn't plan on that. At the time when I came in, I had some really experienced help. They unfortunately left, and the new employees that we have now have little to no experience. So it's a very tough time to try to train people. When I'm sitting there trying to put in voter applications and get my list together, I'm constantly bombarded with questions. It's unfair to them because they need the time to learn too. So we try to do it, piece by piece and bite by bite so that they don't get overwhelmed, and they seem to be very nice people, so we're hoping.
I know the couple times I've stopped in just to say hello, there's been, Shelby's been down there, and
Well, that kind of training that they're doing is helpful in a way, but it is not training for the clerk's office. I just want to make that clear. The training that they're giving them to post a meeting, we do post meetings in my office, but the training that these girls need right now are to be ready for the elections and the activities that are happening in the office. It's great to know how to email, it's great to know how to use the phone system, it's great to buy from combis, but right now I really need to concentrate on the meat and potatoes of the job, so.
and how are you gonna go about doing that?
Well, I have consultants. I have a wonderful consultant who helps me, who came in with me tonight, in case you guys want to speak to her. Her name is Nada Parker. She's the town clerk of Rochester, recently retired as of last week. She was there for 36 years, elected. So she did a really good job. And that's the main function. The state will not come in and train these people. They train election workers, but they will
Right.
not train my office staff.
So you're getting assistance from,
From Miss Parker, and there was
you're
another
free
fellow,
to, you're
Mr.
more
Mullins.
than welcome to join.
Yep, come on up.
36 years and you have the desire to want to continue to help. 36 years, you'd think you'd be heading for a comfortable place to just get away from.
36 years as town clerk, 15 of those years as a member of the Board of Selectmen.
Wow. In Rochester.
Rochester, your neighboring community.
Wow, very good.
So she knows the law just like that at the top of her hand, and I mean, she's quite the asset. When I was away at my conference, if the ladies had a problem, they could reach out to her by phone, and she helped them. She did, so.
Yeah, one of them, you had a resident that needed something, and she hadn't experienced yet. It was a question that doesn't come up every day. So I was able to bring over a card that she needed from the town clerk's in Rochester's office so that she could satisfy the needs of one of your residents. One of the big things with elections is you've all have read in the newspaper and read, the legislature did enact on these early voting options until recently. They picked the primary for this presidential preference, and they picked the state election in November to be the two that they wanted to see the early voting at, not necessarily the one in September. So this election that Kara's about to enter into is kind of, in a way, a good first step to be introduced, and to introduce her staff and any new election workers to early voting processes. And then this presidential preference election will be a good time, because I'm sure she'll see, as Rochester sees now with my stepping down, that some of the election workers follow. We are all graying out, and some of them just are ready to retire as well. So, and I'm sure she's going to experience the same thing here with new people coming in. She's spoken to Bridget.
Yes,
At the-
Bridget Simmons Murphy.
Bridget Simmons Murphy at the Elections Division, and suggested my name as somebody to assist with the training. Bridget was supportive of it and has confidence in me, which was very flattering. So that what I can bring to the table to help with this transition, if it's funded, then we'll be good.
Excellent, thank you very much for your help. So we're allowing $17,500 for election and regular salaries, is that correct, Michael?
That's what the sheet is.
Yeah. So it comes down to 18,008 when we bring in repair and maintenance and stuff like that.
Yeah, that $6,000 should come back to us, though. The state should kick that back, so they're paying for that. They realize that's a huge burden on the town.
See the town administrator? I'm not sure how this town does it. In Rochester, it goes into a special revenue account, the payments from the state for mandates, and then we can then afterwards sometimes use that money to supplement the budget or to buy needed assets like the poll pad, updating voting equipment, and things like that to defray some of the costs of those changes, those upgrades.
So, Ms. Parker, has Rochester reached out to you as well for any consulting time during this busy?
Rochester got very lucky. Paul Dawson, the town administrator in Marion, took out papers for the town clerk's position. He has the town clerk in Wareham and the town clerk on Marion on speed dial because both of those women worked for him in the town of Marion. And he probably will be, he came in while I was still in the office and we went over some stuff. Specifics for my records and what's in my office there, now his. I can answer, but a lot of the other stuff, and while he was the town administrator in Marion, Ray Pickles was somewhat an absentee town clerk. So the gals who worked for him in the clerk's office, providing the day-to-day operation, had the benefit of having him there, and he had the benefit of still having a hands-on. He was town clerk in Winthrop, then he was the town clerk assistant town administrator in Stoughton before he moved up to the town administrator's position in Marion. So he comes with the background in town clerks. So we got very fortunate that Paul was interested in doing that for us.
Great.
I'd like to add, too, that most town clerks have a former town clerk to kind of guide them through, and unfortunately, in our case, we didn't have
You
them.
didn't have that.
So I know Jean was there for a couple of years with Lynn to go through town meeting and the elections, and it's unfortunate that we didn't have that. But
Well, that'll
so
bring me
we're
to
learning every day.
that'll bring me to my next question, and I ask every department head, what's the wish list?
Oh, well, it's not so much my wish list as the town's election wish list. I've got quotes for new voting machines. The voting machines that we have now are,
Out of
we'll get
date.
by, they're out of date, but I mean, we'll get by for this, year of elections. However, it would be nice to have 3 new ones. They're priced about $20,000, just a little over $20,000 for 3 new ones. We would probably
What's
need
the
a
total
4th.
for all 3?
Yeah, it's reasonable, and they don't jam. They give you a message instantly when you vote, so that people realize that their vote has been accepted and taken, and people walk away happy. There's no question, did that go through, did that not go through? I was able to actually play with them and witness them the other day. Some great new technology out there, so.
And are the 2 girls in the office, is that gonna adequately staff?
Well, I hope so. During the interview process, and it has just been called to my attention recently that there were probably better suited candidates that would have been able to just come in seamlessly. I ran into the town clerk in Norton at my conference, and she asked me how come I never interviewed her girl who lives in Plymouth, who works for her, because she would have been perfect, and I never saw the application. They actually forwarded it to me today, just look at it, and gosh, she would have been perfect. You wouldn't have had to have taught her a thing. Had elections experience, knew how to do vitals, knew how to do, handle everything in there. But at the time, I think we kind of had a gun to our head. We were extremely busy. It was dog time. The elections were closing in on us, and it was right around the holidays, so it's a really difficult time to even bring people in for interviews. So The people that we hired were nice. They seem to be nice people, and like I said to them,
Hard workers,
we'll work together, you know, it's a joint effort. We're a good team, so.
Good.
Michael, is this correct? The entire department has a $3,650 operating expense?
Well, there's two departments here, keep in mind. One is the town clerk and the other is the registers and and that section, so the election and regular salaries. So that's where you have a lot of your expenses in the elections and regular salaries. So keep in mind, it's two functions.
Right.
that are here. But as it relates to the voting units, those are in the capital plan that you've already reviewed and seen and have been approved by the capital outlay committee. So that is on the town meeting warrant for this year to be funded in April.
Good. And I'm assuming that we have a provision that if Carver's department needs more help between now and election, that we'll be able to do something with that.
Well, since Carr got elected, both Elaine and I have offered her any additional assistance or training that's necessary. Again, you guys never hear me say this, but she's had an open checkbook to bring in consultants to educate her and the rest of the staff that's down there. And yes, there have been some staff transitions. We have, there have been several consultants that have come in, but money's never been an issue.
Okay.
So we made sure that funding was there when needed to hire the appropriate people, to train people how to do their job.
Great.
And I'll probably take advantage of that now, because it's necessary now. And
Sure.
to find qualified people to come in, they don't grow on trees, that's
No,
for
I
sure.
understand
So I had to wait
that.
for her.
That's why it's important that, financially you're backed up to have the ability to do this.
And prior
We
to
understand
this-
that you came in here and got thrown under the bus,
Yeah,
so
stuff.
we get that,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. That's all I got. Anybody? I would take a motion, if we didn't do this, we're gonna do this tonight with these two departments, then we're gonna go back and review a couple quick ones, just so we don't have this mass to approve to get on the warrant, or actually to bring to the select board. So, George?
I had one question, that, I might have misheard you. There's 2 elections coming up? I thought you said 4.
Well, we have 4 during
in
the
this
year,
year,
but
2 in
two fall under the present budget, and 2 will fall under this budget that we're discussing now. So we have our March 3rd, the primary. We have early voting the week before that.
Right.
And then we have our town election. And then after that, we'll have our September primary, and then finally the November election.
And
So-
then you'll have an April election.
And we'll have, yes, the town election. The early voting for the state will happen, well, for the presidential will happen in October, the last week of October.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks of early voting then. So that will double. Actually, I should probably tell you that's probably going to be about $12,000 for that. But the state should, again, match the funds. We put in for it, and we let them know what our expenses are, and we'll eventually see it back. So if we go a little over, it should all come back to us.
During the general election, are we gonna have early voting in the villages like we've had in the past years? Are you gonna be able to do that?
I'm not 100% sure about that.
Okay.
I haven't looked into it that far, but we're just talking right now about the state one. Today I had to put in for my polling places where, when I only put down one, so it's what, a central,
Underneath your office,
yeah,
is it?
yeah, we're gonna do it underneath the office in the conference room here at the town hall for early
Yeah, it's
For
voting.
early voting,
But,
right.
yeah, but for the actual voting, I'm still talking with the state to see what's gonna work out for us.
Okay.
After the census comes in, we may end up having a 4th precinct, so we're, not too happy about that, but we'll have to divide up and we'll have a 4th precinct. We'll need even more election work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
You good?
Yes, thank you.
Motion.
I make a motion to approve the town clerk's budget and the election registration budget to send to the select board.
I second it.
Motion made and seconded to take the town clerk's budget and the election registration portion of the budget to the approval for the select board. All those, any further discussion?
Just, should we add in there, based on Any increases? Do we still need to?
They'll always be able to
Who's that?
come to us for a transfer out of the reserve account if they run into a jam.
Okay.
So
that's what
I'm
I
not,
meant,
yeah, I'm not concerned. This just locks in their numbers. It doesn't lock it in because they can come back to us and ask for a
That's
transfer.
more transfers.
Sure.
That's right.
So
Okay.
they run short, we have this slush fund.
Yeah, I knew that's what we were supposed to do.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Carver, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Hope your dog is okay.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
nothing worse than having a sick puppy at home. Nothing.
Yeah, no, she's old. She's almost 15.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, she doesn't like the rain. Thank
Hold on
you.
to that.
Thank you.
Have a good
I
night.
neither. She doesn't like the rain. I don't like the rain.
9-0.
Oh, that's true.
Good. Next up, we'll take the planning department, sir.
Everybody, how you doing?
I'm well, and yourself?
Doing very well, thanks. Oh, sure. Jim Walsh, Director of Planning, Town of Carver.
You have the floor, my friend.
Okay. Essentially presenting a more or less level-funded budget for the next fiscal year. There were some, provisions for step increases as well as contractual obligations. And really nothing too fancy about this budget. It's pretty much moving forward. I think as time goes on, I'll have more items that I'll have from my wish list later on. Willing to answer any questions you may have.
Jim, want to talk about your central permitting software and everything we're doing?
Sure. So in last year's town meeting, I believe it was appropriated about $40,000 for permit tracking software. And so we've been, among other things, working on an RFP to put out. So I expect to have that by the end of the month, to put the RFP out, and then hopefully, by the end of March, we'll have a company selected that could start working on implementing that software.
And what's that gonna do for us?
What it does, so for example, for planning board materials, everything kind of gets uploaded onto a system where it's kind of file sharing between the applicants, myself, any attorneys involved, our peer reviewer, so that you just log into a computer and you go to a page and you can kind of look at what's been submitted for a file. Residents will be able to look, go online and look online at what's been submitted, so they don't have to make a special trip here at the town hall to look at files. It also helps kind of maintain paperwork. Sometimes papers get shuffled and they aren't in different files, but this way everything will be kind of on the system and people will be able to see that.
So when we go back 2 years later to try to find if a building permit was complete and so forth, this will help us
Right.
get to there without pulling files out that are this thick.
Right, yeah, one of the big challenges is we've had a number of subdivisions become resurrected, and so people ask questions about them, and they have to kind of go through and do a little bit of a paper chase trying to figure out what happened with that particular subdivision. The other thing, too, is one of the challenges we're facing is kind of dealing with some of these code enforcement issues, and so having kind of a code enforcement component, it helps us kind of track when we have communications with people. So we help someone call in, hey, this property, they're out on the property chipping wood again. So then that way someone could go down, observe, and then at either like via your cell phone or email, add something to the chain of comments or photographs or other evidence that we're using to handle that complaint. And so everything we kind of self-contained in one area. Right now, it depends on who answers the phone. Sometimes it's the building commissioner, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's one of the gals in the permitting office. And so it's just trying to keep all that stuff contained into one area. So I'm really looking forward to getting that going.
Are we gonna hire well, for Michael, I guess, too, but are we gonna hire a code enforcement individual? Are we gonna hire another position to go along with the building inspector? I mean, how are we gonna address code enforcement? Because this is gonna come down to the Board of Health and their regulations and so forth and so on, as far as the nuisance stuff is concerned. So where are we doing code enforcement?
Well, just on that, code enforcement can be done by many different people within the department. It can be done by the health inspector, it can be done by one of the building commissioners. So there's some flexibility in
Right.
there. The first thing is to get the regulation passed, to give them some tools that
Right.
they don't have now. And then from there to assess what the situation is, if we need to bring in additional part-time support, whatever that may be. But right now, Jim does have additional outside support when he needs it to bring it in. And I think it just depends upon seeing how things evolve. Right now, I mean, even though we're hearing a bunch about the mulching and everything, it's not like it's rampant throughout town. There's a handful of places.
Right,
That's what you're talking about.
right.
It's not like there's 60 and we need
No,
somebody to handle
no,
60
there isn't.
places. We're
That's
not
correct.
saying-
That's correct.
Right. So it could be, yeah, taking a look at existing positions. Is there something we could expand upon who could get trained to handle also code enforcement? We do have one of our building inspectors took a full-time position in Falmouth, but he's kind of filling in the evenings, so he's still able to work that out. But, you know, say in the future, say if he became too busy at his job in Falmouth, then, you know, I'd kind of like to see maybe kind of a combo position where you have someone who's a building inspector, but also can do the code enforcement component.
Anybody?
Jim, I've got a question for you about the different inspectors, building, plumbing, wiring, et cetera. Is a portion of their salary covered by fees that are collected for those permits, permitting fees, or?
To be honest, I'm not sure how that aspect comes in. You know, I know we receive fees, but
We help Jim out on
Mr.
that.
Expert,
Thank you, Michael.
this the show where you phone a friend or grab a life.
Here's a lifeline. Not that Jim needs it, but this predates Jim. When I came into the town, the electrical and plumbing inspector received half of whatever the fee was. And there were cases where people would drive around town and they'd see an empty box from a toilet, just from Home Depot, and then they'd go knocking on the door, where's my permit fee? Obviously, that we didn't think that was appropriate, just as we didn't think people should be getting, you know, I think one time it was $15,000 or $20,000, which they're half for a solar project. So we eliminated that. And so now everybody is paid either per diem or an hourly basis. All of the fees go into the town. The inspections department generally is cost neutral to a town, so that the fees cover all of the expenses that it costs to pay the salaries of all the people that are there, plus the support staff. And these are fees for permits and putting permits, and we really don't get fine fees. And the issue with fines is a lot of times if a fine is ever given, people take it to court and the judge waives it. So really the revenue from the inspection department comes from inspections, fees, permits that are done there. But it does all go into our town budget. It's part of our revenue forecast. And it's, and I will say solar has certainly helped that line item for a while.
So just looking at the dollar amounts that are provided here for the building inspector and others, that essentially encapsulates what their total compensation is on an annual basis. It's not, there's no additional.
Without going through all my data, I'm going to tell you generally all of the permit inspectors is covered through fees the town collects.
Yeah.
So that department, for the fees it takes in, exceeds or equals its cost of paying for those people full part-time per diem.
Sure. And I really, what I'm trying to ascertain is, theoretically, if we're paying building inspectors, you know, $37,488, there's no additional compensation that's going to them. We might collect fees that exceed that or be slightly below that, but that's essentially all they're getting for those inspections.
That's correct. Yeah,
What
there's,
that
there's
job-
no
what
half
that
like they
job.
used to get, right?
Right. And then in addition to that, your office staff,
Mhm.
that's, you know, here to answer questions when folks come in about permits or whatever it might be. Is that covered under the clerical?
It's under the clerical contract, so let's see, yes, under clerical, 58,000. So a couple things, the office coordinator and clerical and the additional hours, that 49, 58, and 4,500, those are all office staff supporting the inspectors.
Okay.
That's who you see doing the permits all the time.
And is that senior staff we have down there currently, or some of it new, or?
No, they, seasoned staffed, very seasoned staffed, that's down there. We have, 2 full-time, 1 19 hours, and another one that's a little bit less than that for a number of hours.
Thank you.
That's an important job, and I just want to take this moment because those folks, again, going back several years ago, you would have your conservation office, your health office, and this, and then when somebody would take off 2 weeks, couldn't get a conservation permit, just shut down. And, or if someone went out to lunch and I was going in to get a conservation permit and the window was shut, pulled down, come back another time. And that's when, through the Finance Committee, through the Board of Selectmen and town meeting, we went and created this consolidated permanent inspections department. And in essence, we've had to cross-train all of those employees. I will say the first year, year and a half before Jim was here, it was bumps into the thing. But over time, it's turned into a really good seasoned team that they can really answer any questions. And then I was down there the other day and somebody came in to ask a question that the person was comfortable asking, but the building inspector was in there. She went in and pulled the file, pulled the regulation tied into that, grabbed those 2 documents, walked with the person into the inspector's office, put the 2 documents down on the inspector's table, sat the other person across from the inspector, and she says, this is what the person wants to look at, you know, and can you advise him on that? But my point being there is that she just made our part-time inspector's job real easy, because she just put everything there for them to do their job and to do that last little bit to talk to them through it.
Yeah, that's somewhat why I asked, because I think where they're touching so, I mean, it's, you literally could have dedicated staff just for conservation or for Board of Health or what have you. So to have folks that have their hands in so many different buckets, it requires folks that have a willingness to learn, going to put the time and effort in to learn everything they need to learn. Otherwise, it doesn't work efficiently.
Correct.
It is a very important job. That's part of the reason why I asked.
Yep.
Also, is this the same department that would address any questions as it relates to zoning and things like that, or would it be?
Yeah, you want to answer that? Go ahead.
Sure.
Lifeline
So-
back.
So if anyone calls in with a request, usually Bob Francis, the building commissioner, he's also the zoning enforcement officer. So generally have him answer the question, but also the staff is able to, if we don't have kind of a clear answer for someone, because sometimes in the regulations, the bylaws, there's some gaps, some gray areas. So we usually meet as a technical review committee to kind of take a look at something, talk it out, and then get back to someone with an answer on a question that they may have.
So with that, you have 3 layers of people coming in with questions. You have ones that this now cross-trained office staff can handle the very straightforward black and white answers. They can do that. They can talk about your setbacks. They can tell you what's allowed, what's not allowed based upon the zoning. They can take care of all that. Then, as Jim said, the next step is you go to the building inspector and then building commissioner, and then he reviews stuff. And then if there's still some ambiguity in something, which occasionally there is, then they have a team that they get him and the health inspector and Jim, the 3 of them meet with the conservation agent at time. The 4 of them will meet and go over any type of gray area or something that's a little bit not more complicated.
As well as the office staff, so that everyone
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of develops, familiarity with the bylaws and
Yeah.
where those gray areas may be.
And that's an important learning tool for the full-time office staff, is to sit in those meetings too, because then they learn from that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
What is an alternate inspector? Does that cover all 3 or just part of the building?
There's an alternate inspector for each of the inspectors. So for example,
each of,
wiring inspector, there's an alternate for that, although I think he resigned because he took a full-time job in the town of Falmouth. And then for our plumbing inspector, there's another individual who serves as a alternate when, say, he's out of town or he goes away, say for a week, that we have someone who can step in and fill that position.
is that like a per diem?
I believe
You
that's,
come in, I mean, $7,500 doesn't seem to be a whole lot of money.
No, it's an hourly basis, so you have your regular person, but again, vacation, somebody's out
Right.
sick, whatever it is, this is just a line item for them to hire somebody on a per diem or hourly basis. I think it's done hourly. I think
I
it's
believe so, yeah.
It's hourly.
Okay.
The thing that, in answer to your question too, Adam, the thing that really works with your department in sitting on conservation and ZBA, that department is critical. Because this town has so much wetlands and so many instances where the ZBA has to get involved and planning is involved and conservation's involved and the building department's involved, that without it all being in one location, it winds up helter-skelter. So you end up with a case that actually, we had one that was still in the planning board and came before the zoning board of appeals at the same time. So it's, why would you be here if you haven't got through over there yet? Typically, when your department gets an issue that conservation's involved in, it comes to conservation first and lets them get that issue out of the way, and then they have a system by which way it goes from there and how it works. And I gotta say that department is run so well because the permitting process for some of these projects is so ridiculously confusing that you need a Philadelphia lawyer and you need a department that knows what they're doing and can send you in the right direction, but more importantly, at the right time. So hats off to the department. You guys do a great job.
thank you.
Just keeping it all straight.
And I want to say I was very fortunate. I walked in a very good situation. There are towns that you can go to and one department won't talk to the other. They're completely all off in different corners and you can't get a straight answer. So,
And that's
Carver's
what's
very
great,
fortunate.
because you can go have a discussion with you about a project and then walk right next door to Kevin and say, from a Board of Health standpoint, what do you think about this? And then go across the hall and have Deb say, well, you know, this is gonna have to go, you need to go to Zoning Board of Appeals first, or this needs to go to Conservation. So that you don't, the customer, the taxpayer, doesn't get the feeling that they're getting this massive runaround in town.
Yep.
They're being directed in the right way to go. And some of these projects that have been so huge have had, you know, time-consuming meetings and site visits and so forth that have bounced back and forth between inspectors and you run a really tight ship. And I think that it's great the way you do it.
I'm glad you brought that up, and just a couple comments on that is that Jim's been here, about 8 months, I think it is, and been doing a really good job, and you do have a good group of people down there. You know, I don't have any issues, concerns, or does this department keep me up at night? It did 4 years ago, but right now it's operating very, very well and provides good customer service. And with that is that in the old days, you get the runaround. Well, that's not our responsibility. Go to them. They're closed. The window's down.
Right.
I can be back for 2 weeks. You know, that doesn't make the taxpayer happy, and it actually just aggravates the hell out of them. So we have been focused a lot on customer service because you guys that pay taxes are our customers. That's it. That's what it is. It's customer service. And so what the staff is, they make sure that if they can't answer the question, they're going to find somebody that can versus just go upstairs or go down the hall. And you know, this department does a really good job with that to make sure that they know who the customer is. It's the people that pay the taxes, and they do a good job. The other thing I'll mention too is there's also a tech review team. So in addition to what Jim mentioned about reviewing some idiosyncrasies where a special project may fall through something, any large projects, is Jim will spearheads bringing in public safety, bringing everybody we just talked about, to talk about larger projects so that they can be vetted and understood before they're actually publicly presented to address any shortcomings that they may have in their design or issues with Carver that can be addressed. And that includes, again, the public safety branches as well, which allows for a lot of that to get resolved ahead of time, just so that we can streamline everything. And then finally, they're all trained as the regulations say X, everybody's treated the same way based upon those regulations. There's no interpretation, well, I like you, I don't like you. It's, here's the regulations, here's what you do. That's it.
I make a motion to send, for the planning, environmental, and permitting.
Well, I didn't even get to his wish list yet.
I thought we did that already.
We didn't do a wish list yet.
Okay, wish list?
Wish list.
Well, let's do a page.
Because he doesn't know, he's new. He doesn't know that we give you the opportunity, that if money were no object and it fell from the heavens in massive abundance, what's your wish list?
Well, it's really kind of small. Give me another year and maybe I can help that thing expand. One thought is we should look maybe at updating the open space and recreation plan. The town has, I believe it's from 2012, so it's outdated. One of the benefits of having an updated open space plan is there are state grants. Having an updated plan will help you in your quest to get those grant funds to supplement other buckets of money that we have.
And do you feel that you're adequately staffed? That whole department now?
Yeah, maybe some little tweaks in the department, maybe like a 19-hour kind of inspector, code enforcement person would be the ideal, but we got some good people right now, so keep that going. Other than that, we do have our not quite 19-hour person. We'd like to get her up to that point. She's very good with computer applications and helped bail me out on a couple of occasions, so having that kind of ability in the office is helpful. And other than that, I don't know if you put into the budget for next year a plotter printer, but something like that will help when we have people who are, say, looking for electronic versions. We can scan, you can print out a copy of a plan, or essentially plotter and printer kind of thing. Scanner would be helpful.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
do that only so that you plant the seed, that's all. So that those that watch this at home or read the minutes or the committee, when it comes up as an item, we've already heard this, so we know it's part of your desire. So it just gives you an opportunity to plant the seed, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you.
Just-
go ahead.
Sorry, Alan.
I'm
Just to
sorry.
confirm that the permit software, that's already sort of beyond the wish list stage, right? That's already.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
last
happening.
year.
Okay.
Right, so it's implementing, but some of the software companies, they offer things in components. So we have to see what we get for what our initial outlay is. And then I'd like to see it be kind of like a townwide. So for example, the fire department, for their permits, they can access it. Board of Selectmen with the licenses and.
Integrates with the other departments.
Right, integrate. So that way we have, all the departments can access the system. For example, we had a restaurant that had a liquor license, but they came in for a Board of Health thing, and then it turned out later that by mere expansion of the restaurant required them to expand their liquor license too, so they were kind of in violation for a little bit of time, and hopefully something like that will prevent those situations.
Sure. Perfect.
Just on that, the permitting tracking software, we actually had contemplated putting an additional, I think it was around $10,000 in the budget this year, because it's going to require the annual operating costs. You got to have the license fee for those things. The reason why it's not in here is that by the time we implement this, they're going to give us a 12-month window on it. It's not going to be implemented till after July 1st, so it'll take us through all next fiscal year. But you will see next year in this budget, there will be a number plus or minus $10,000 for the licensing fee for the permit tracking software. But again, that'll be cross-platform through the rest of the town departments.
I think the permit tracking is a great idea. I really do. And as far as the scanning stuff, could we make use of the, get over yourself. Could we make use of the drafting department perhaps at Old Colony?
I don't know if that's what our need is, but the answer is we always try to make ourselves useful to them or vice versa whenever we can. This is really just a large printer plotter that we need to do. There's going to be a scanner as well. We just need to purchase it.
Right. So when we have some old subdivisions that we don't have electronic versions of, so when it's time to implement the permit tracking software, it'd be nice to have something that can scan those larger plans, and then we'll have electronic versions of them to add to the system.
Cool. Go ahead.
I make a motion for the planning, environmental, and permitting salaries and expenses to send to the select board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to send the planning, environmental, permitting budget to the select board for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 9-0. Thank you, Jim, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, thank you. You might as well stay there. We'll get your update if you would be so kind, sir.
I guess the question is, you've heard all the departments but for O&M, I think, at this point. I don't know if you want to go through just, because I know you haven't voted some of these out, do you want to just go through the list department by department and ask any final questions if
I
there
think
are
that's
any?
a great idea. We can get the vote out of the way at the same time. That's all right with the rest of the committee? Moderator's fine. Why don't we take Selectman, Town Administrator? I need a motion unless there's any other questions. And bear in mind, this is only to bring it to the Select Board, which we're going to be at a joint meeting where it'll be, we voted X to approve, and it's still up to them, so.
Alan, why don't you just start with the moderator and vote that one? Even though it's $250, let's just get them all done.
Okay.
We have to go through each one?
No,
Can we
we'll
it
do
in block?
departments. We're going to do them
Wait.
pretty quick,
Yeah.
departments.
All right.
I make a motion to send the moderator salary and operating to the select board.
I second it.
Motion made and seconded to send the moderator salary and operating budget to the Select Board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 9-0. A motion for the Selectmen Administration Budget, 836, 623, 28. Any
She wants
questions?
to ask a
I
question.
wanted to ask a question.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
come the town hall additional hours and salary and incentive pay is going up so much?
Say that again?
That's a
The last
very,
one.
very good question, and I'm glad you asked that question. So what we do is, when I presented before, we were doing a 3% COLA.
Yep.
So what happens is when we prepare this budget level funded. So it doesn't include any COLA. So all of the salaries you see in here are without the COLAs. So what we do is every year we roll the COLAs into this additional hours incentive pay. And that's why the number jumps up, because it went from a 2% to a 3%. That's really your 80 to whatever it is, portion of the $119,000.
Yeah, it was like 29,019.
Yes.
I'm looking up for this sheet here. So this is the total of the 836. Any other questions on that? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to send the selectmen, town administrator salary and expenses to the select board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the Selectman Town Administrator to be taken to the Select Board for the budget. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? George? Miscellaneous townwide budget, any questions on that?
I actually do have a question. The telephone,
Mhm.
I thought, because I've seen in other departments, they also have telephone. I thought we were grouping it all into one, but then I've seen,
If you see it in another department, it's probably just a one-off. I don't recall that being in someplace else. If it is, and you identify it, I'll tell you exactly where it is. Oh,
okay,
here we
I'll
go.
look at my other,
Fire department.
yes.
So fire department, that's all of the cards that they have in all of the engines. It's the data cards.
Yep.
So they budget those separately.
I
Okay.
think police have the same thing, don't they?
Yeah. Now, this has gone down because we've, as part of the elementary school project, because we're able to keep that under budget so much, that allowed us to build up our central IT network. So we've put high-speed internet in all the buildings. So now we took out all our old phones. With a lot of them, some of them were on copper lines. For those that have kids in the middle high school, if it rained, you couldn't call the school because the copper lines would somehow get water in the lines and they would not work. So that has gone to voice over IP from the copper line, which has actually reduced down our phone charges for making that conversion. That's why you see that drop from $45,000 to $30,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to send the miscellaneous town-wide expenses to the select board.
My second.
Motion made and seconded to send the miscellaneous townwide expenses to the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 9-0. Finance Committee? It's kind of self-serving, huh?
I make a motion to approve the finance committee's salaries and operating expenses
Second it.
to send to the select board.
Motion made and seconded to send the Finance Committee salaries and the operating expenses to the Select Board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? For the clarification, this amount of money is also so that we can so generously pay Mary Ann and Kelly when she fills in for us, and buy our handbooks and supplies, as well as the, I'll be talking about the MMA's got another event coming up,
That one's free.
so, but it just took care of the last one.
I know, I'm just
What you
saying.
want?
There's enough money.
So, that's what that's for. Finance Department. Any questions?
Is there enough money in the salaries for the full board now?
For our board? Yes,
Yeah,
that
okay.
was corrected.
I make a motion to approve the finance department salaries and operating to send to the select board.
A second.
Motion made and seconded to send the Finance Department salaries, the operating budget to the Select Board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Legal Services, $100,000. Any questions?
Just as a comment for this is what we're anticipating our legal expenses could be if all of a sudden we have a bunch of public records requests and additional lawsuits that aren't anticipated. This potentially could go up. Keep in mind that we do have my insurance, that if there is any litigation, they generally take that over if the town's sued. I do think this is adequate for what we're anticipating as a normal year without any significant union negotiations and everything. Again, based upon the knowledge we have today, this is good. This past year has been a little crazy, so that's why I'm only mentioning it, that I hope next year's not crazy.
But you had to have a number to put on the piece of paper, and
That's right.
if it winds up being too much, then the turn back goes back to free cash.
Right.
And if it's not enough, then you'll come back for a transfer request. So it's a number that we needed to start with. So,
I make a motion to approve the legal services to send to the select board.
Second.
motion made and seconded to send the legal services to the Select Board, the budget. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, 9-0. Nothing on data processing. We did the clerk.
Yeah, so-
We did-
Yeah, the only thing I'll mention on the clerk is that it's probably the only department that concerns me or keeps me up is the challenge of not having, let me see how I phrase this properly, without getting Facebook to death. By going through the elections, which everybody's in favor of, when you don't have candidates that have 5-10 years of clerk experience, and you bring somebody into that position, there's going to be challenges because they don't know the position. And then on top of that, if they and the employees don't get along and the employees leave, then you have to bring in new employees. And if you are unable to bring in consultants to support them because for whatever reason, it's a concern to me for the election coming up and just our process that's there. So although you heard me say that we've provided unlimited checkbook, which I never say, those that know me, to this office, we had to do that to try to find people to come in. But we haven't had great success. And although the state does offer webinar training to teach people all of the aspects of the clerk's office, that still has not been done. And again, I'm just, in case there is a need later on this year to come back for a finance transfer, I mean, we have some flexibility in our budget from our extra hours and things, but this department could require a lot more work, and that concerns me. So again, this is what the budget should be. This is what the budgets have been in the past, but there are a lot of issues that are in there, and of course, you know, people run for the position knowing that they don't know what they don't know, and so, you know, that's part of the process. But at the end of the day, there's elections coming up, they have to be done, and it's a concern that we have that there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done. And we're gonna have to monitor that.
So, it's a quick question. So, town clerk, the elected department head,
Mhm.
comes in, but ideally, the staff that was there would remain. But in this case, we've got a new department head, but also a new staff, because there's been some exodus, whatever, from the
Correct.
staff. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all bailed.
Okay, but typically, they would remain.
Typically.
Typically, they would remain. They are union employees. They do report to the town administrator's office because I do all the hiring in town.
Yep.
But each department runs their own staff on the day-to-day activities. But, you know, there are a lot of extenuating circumstances why people chose to leave or not leave. So, but at the end of the day, there's responsibilities that staff have, and then there's statutorily requirements that a town clerk has that they have to follow and they have to be responsible for that are different from the day-to-day operations of the staff. And that's where you have your big discrepancy right there.
Sure.
And that's the concern.
How long is that term?
That's a 2-year term, I believe.
3.
Is it 3?
3.
3.
3-year term.
3 years.
3-year term.
Once you're vested, you're vested.
But there's no oversight from anyone in this room, anyone in that room, anyone that meets here on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. There's no oversight. It's an independent elected position. The only oversight that happens is the budget, and then obviously the staff are part of the personnel plan, part of the union plan, and the hiring and firing of staff that's in there. But the day-to-day operations is up to the voters to determine if the individual does a good job and whether they perform or don't perform under the Secretary of State's regulations.
We do not have any clerical support right now, Chuck. Permanent or full-time? or-
No, actually, there, recently a full-time and a part-time person were hired, which has been what the staff has always been. Again, one of the things the selectmen did as part of its annual review is that, that our HR department provides training for individuals on all town aspects. So we're taking care of the non-clerk training, and that's been done. But the clerk training is something that the department head would do. So again, that concerns me that they haven't done the state webinar training to understand what the job is. But no, they do have the staff that's there for the positions. But again, they're not trained either. And that that is a concern.
Mike, the clerk mentioned that somehow or other an application got lost or just wasn't submitted?
First I heard of that.
I'm sorry?
First I heard of that.
Oh, okay, I was wondering
Yeah.
what might have happened there.
First I heard about that, that's up to HR and how they do things. I'm not aware of any application being missed.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a late application and
Yeah.
go through that.
Anyone
Sorry.
else on the topic? The town clerk? Okay. Let's go down to public safety. Need a vote on the police department. Any further discussion or questions before we vote?
Did we vote on the town clerk? Did we?
No.
Yeah, we
did.
did, 9-0, and we
I
did
didn't check.
planning.
What about capital outlay?
Capital, I'm sorry, thank you. Capital outlay, let's do that one quick.
I make a motion to send the capital outlay budget to the select board.
Second.
Made and seconded to send the capital outlay budget to the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now we'll come down to the police department. Any questions? I thought they gave public safety gave a excellent, they really did a great job. All three departments came and did a great job. I did steal some of Adam's good ideas. I put them out.
I appreciate it.
I thought that was good, I really did. And you do exactly what I do a lot of times. I try to break it down so that sometimes it's hard for someone to grasp a $2 million or a $40 million or a $21 trillion deficit. But if you bring it down to a number that they can identify with, and everybody knows what $1,000 is, because that's on their level of they can relate to it. They know what it takes to make $1,000, whether it's a day, a week, a month. Millions is an abstract. They can't wrap their head around other than it's a big number, but they don't know why it's a big number. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
And
absolutely.
it's not because they don't know, it's because they don't experience it.
Right.
So when you bring it out that $60 a year per person in the town for their fire department, and you break it there, everybody understands what $60 is. We've all got $60 in our pocket. We can relate to that number. So I think that was a fabulous idea. I like to do it with the whole budget, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So, on the police department, any questions? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the total police department budget to send to the select board.
Second.
Made and seconded to send the police department budget to the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fire department. Another fabulous presentation.
It was a fabulous presentation. I do have something that was concerning to me is when we talked about the aerial. While I do see the importance of it, my husband was a professional firefighter, so I understand the reach and everything. The idea that they're going to come to Capital Outlay and FinCom if they find a good deal, and I almost feel like it's circumventing town meeting, especially for that kind of expense. It's, I would rather see it, in Capital Outlay at town meeting, let the town vote on it. If one isn't found, the money goes back, and then do it again the next year. So the town meeting actually has a say on that expense.
So just a comment on that is, I understand your point. What I think everyone recognizes is that you can't afford a brand-new aerial, whatever that's a ladder or a raised platform or something like that. You're $1.2, $1.3 million, and we've never had one before, and our capital budget won't allow for that over time. That being said, is that we have kept money in the capital outlay for that specific reason, and I have mentioned that before at town meeting as a possibility. The same thing as last year when we bought the SCADA things for all of their apparatus. I mean, that was $500,000.
But that was with expired equipment that needed to be replaced.
Right.
It wasn't a want.
Correct. I mean, they have, just so you know, in their capital budget for the last 3 years, they've had an aerial in their year one priority, is a need that they have. So it's not necessarily a want, it's the fact that to provide better fire protection coverage and to get the overarching, fire supplying on the thing, they don't have that ability. The same thing is with that capital and outlay fund, which again, you guys are town meeting, except for one or last year twice, 2 days out of the year. You are the town meeting that comes back and says, the big town meeting has delegated certain responsibilities to you in certain funds that you have to do in concert with the capital outlay. But we also need to recognize that sometimes we need to act like a business, and we just can't call up a town meeting if there is an opportunity that comes up, we're able to buy something for a few $100,000 just because it fits in a cycle that you just don't know about. And I do say this, that occasionally there are equipment when you have some of these well-funded departments, particularly in Long Island, that they're going to buy a new ladder truck every 4 years. And they might normally last 14 or 20 years. But because they have the money to buy a new one every 4 or 5 years, they'll just let it go, at least rates type things. And that's where we want to be in a position that we don't have 1.2 set up in the budget now because of everything else going. And it is a need, but if there is something that pops up, we want to have the flexibility to do that. And that's why that fund's been set up, and with the checks and balances, that it's not just the capital outlay, it's capital outlay and FinCom that make that decision. And again, that's just how it's been. If town meeting wants to change that, it's up to town meeting to do that. I understand what you're saying, Kate, but I just don't want to think that it's a want. It has been identified as a need, and trust me, when I went through the building of that building, that bump out, and George remembers, is that some people talked to, they were literally red in the face to explain why the bump out was needed and why that's important for the safety of the firemen and women when they're in a large event where they have to have that aerial dousing that's on there. And at that point, I think we spent, I forget the exact numbers, but it might have been $80,000, $90,000 for the bump out. And they made the justification as to why it needs to be here. I just can't afford a full one right now, so that's why the agreement was, let's find a used one, because that's really all Carver needs at this point. And let's see how that runs for 10 years, and then assess from there. So there's pros and cons of each one of these things. I'm just sharing the rest of the information. And I don't have a lifeline to call because the chief's not here.
Well, it's been on the long-term forecast, and they keep pushing it out. But I was under the same impression that it was on the long-term forecast as a necessity, and the intent was that if a good deal came along, we wouldn't have time for town meeting. We wouldn't have time. It would be we've got to act on this. So capital outlay, we'd have another joint meeting, and capital outlay would make the decision, and then it would come to us at the same thing, and then we do exactly what we did with the PPE. But I get what you're saying with the PPE.
Yeah, but the
had
PPE,
expired.
it was expired,
that.
it was, that we knew that they were going for a grant, and grants are not guaranteed, so that there was a different story behind that.
Completely agreed. And that's why I want to share that there is a history for this, at least for the last 4 years.
Yeah, there is.
And it's bumped out on the capital because that's brand new. That's a brand new one, and that's how far it's going to take us to buy a brand new one. But if we have, if you will, saved money through all of our other cost savings as one-time money, that's where the agreement was, let's see if we can find something that's on sale.
And the police department's done it with us when there's been a really good deal on a former chief's car or something like that it come up out of nowhere. It wasn't in the budget, yet it was a steal, and it
I
would
thought that was
replace-
after a car accident.
No,
That's
no,
what we-
well, when the chief got his current car, which came from Marshfield, I believe, that wasn't forecast
Duxbury.
in the budget. That just come up, and that had to be, brought up before FinCom, and it had to be a budget transfer to take advantage of a car that had low miles on it, because Marshfield was getting the chief a brand-new car, and this was
Yeah.
a good deal to trade in.
I would say over the last 4 years, we have probably bought, probably 10, maybe 8 cruisers, interceptors that with lights and everything, that were less than 3 years old. and they had less than 80,000 miles on it, and we were paying less than $10,000 for, with lights and the Interceptor package, you're talking, $55,000, $60,000. And so what it is we're buying the new for the frontline officers, but for the detectives, for the school resource officer, for the chief, is they're getting 2- and 3-year-old cars through this process that's there that, again, it's all of a sudden we find out that they're getting 3 new cruisers and you want to buy these. And we're like, how can we not? For that dollar amount, it works out perfect. So,
Am I optimistic that Chief Weston's gonna find a $1 million ladder truck for $250,000? I wouldn't hold my breath, but you never know.
so just on that,
From, Rhode Island, not Rhode Island, Long Island,
You never know.
seems to
yeah.
prop up quite a bit with the amount of money that they spend on their equipment down there and their station.
Sure.
I will say that after the station was built, or right when it was nearing completion, before we had this fund set up in the amount that it was, because we were focused on the police station at that point, and before enough money was in there, there was a deal that came up. I forget what the exact numbers is, but it was one of those ones, it was like, well, that's a bargain. It was a Pierce. We all buy Pierce, that's what we use down here. It had low mileage, but we just didn't have the account set up properly then. And we missed something at that point. And that's okay. So we learned from that, and that's why we set it up this way. But I completely understand your point, and we try to explain this all the time, that, maybe we haven't done enough explaining as to why it's a need versus a want, and we'll make sure we do that a little bit better.
Okay.
And I think with the record the fire department has on buying equipment like this and bringing it up, I don't think the chief's gonna run out and throw down a check on somebody's desk and buy a new, without letting all of us involved in that. I have faith in him to be very frugal.
I was just wondering, in discussing this particular type of a deal, is there like a not-to-exceed number where you?
So, Bill,
Well, it's not a budget item. It would come before
Well, I mean,
us.
just,
Yeah.
it just, this is a good deal, and you're gonna decide that.
no.
No,
I'm going to make a recommendation
Yeah.
with the chief, and guess what, Bill?
You-
You're going to decide.
Yeah.
Everybody here is going to decide. And you can determine if it's a good deal or not good deal,
Okay, so
but
you'd be coming back and.
we'll be coming
Capital
back
outlay, sure.
for your approval, and, I think we've proven ourselves that we do good deals, but the checks and balances is you get to vote for it up or down.
You don't think we're gonna give him a blank check?
No, I have no problem with it, I just, we don't, I'm not
No.
in the business of,
Can I record that? You said I have no problem with that?
It's on video.
It is,
You
it
got
is recorded.
No, that'll
I
come
just-
back, that would come back before capital outlay, and then it would come back with us at a joint meeting, much like we did the personal protective gear.
Yeah. But Kay, we'll make sure we explain that a little bit better so that the public realizes it's not a want, it's a need, but we just can't afford the full need right now with everything else going on right now.
Anything else on the fire department? I will take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the fire department salaries and operating to be sent to the select board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the fire department salaries and operating budget to go to the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I think I'll abstain. right? I didn't vote last.
Okay.
Fire.
One abstention. Mary Ann? His best husband is a firefighter. EMS. That's pretty much an easy one to go with. I'm assuming you're abstaining?
No, my husband no longer works for Carver EMS.
Then you can do whatever you'd
I
like.
can. I make a motion to approve the ambulance salaries and expenses to be sent to the select board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to send the ambulance service EMS salaries and operating expenses to the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 9-0. And that's it. Next time is Public Works.
Now you got back
Actually, no, we
page.
did community living, didn't we?
Oh, yeah,
Flip the
community
page.
living. I apologize. I'm getting there. You know,
Earth removal?
that's what we need, earth removal. It's great. Community living, library,
You got earth removal and landfill and engineering.
Cemetery.
Not on my page.
No, it is, it's under the Public Works, but.
Yeah, we can do those under Public Works.
It's under the Public Works.
Yeah, it's under Public Works.
Oh, there it is, okay, I see how you have that done. Yep, let's skip that.
Okay.
I was looking at the color pages.
Community living salaries and expenses. Any discussion? Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a library trustee, so I should have voted on this, right? Because I get a stipend.
Yes, I would abstain, just to make
I'm
it
just
easy.
clarifying that.
Yep,
Oh, yes, by our bylaws, if you're on the finance committee, you can't vote on a department that you sit on a board.
correct.
Right.
So not only an employee or a spouse or something like that, but you,
I just
good call.
Thank you.
That's because you get a stipend for that? Don't we do that here? How did we vote?
No,
on
she's
that?
elected as a library
Oh,
trustee.
okay,
She's an
sorry.
elected.
Yeah, you can't advocate in front of the finance committee for the board you sit on. That's
No,
what,
I understand. I didn't know how we did it for ourselves.
We're special.
If that's the general rule,
it's the general rule, but you're special and that falls under the.
See, I didn't lie.
The necessity, the act of, what's it, Alan, what's it? Rule of necessity.
Okay.
Somebody's got to vote on your own budget. And it was done in a public setting on TV and is posted.
That's correct.
I don't disagree with it.
Yep. And actually, guess what? It's in the bylaws, and not in the bylaws, but it's in the org chart anyway.
That's right. And the selectmen could vote no.
True.
It's doubtful, but you never know. Okay, library, questions, any more? Motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the community living salaries and expenses to be sent to the select board.
I second.
Motion made and seconded for community living salaries and expenses to be sent to the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we have 801.
Employee benefits, did we do that one?
Huh?
Did we do that?
We did not. We haven't done,
So we, actually,
yeah,
veterans
veterans is
benefits.
part of the community living thing now.
Well, it's in the
he's-
department, but it wasn't part of the budget, so you got to vote that one separately. But we did go over that when they were here.
Okay. Would you like a motion, please?
Sure.
I make a motion to approve the veterans' benefits to be sent to the select board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the veterans' benefits to be sent to the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 9-0. Historic Commission?
Again, just a disclaimer on that one, that's the best of our ability. If all of a sudden we get a bunch more subscribers, it changes. It's now adequately funded. Years ago, we were always coming to the finance committee, but, last year we didn't have to.
On the veterans, you mean.
Veterans, yeah.
The Historic Commission?
I make a motion to approve the historic commission and the historic district commission
Perfect.
to be
You
sent
can
to
do them
the,
together.
Do it
Yeah.
twofer.
yeah,
Yeah.
to the select board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to send the Historic Commission and the Historic District Commission to the Select Board for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? She's got nobody opposed to any of this tonight? Employee benefits are the employee benefits. Not much we can do about it, so does that require, I don't think that requires a vote from us, right?
Voting on everything else, you might as well.
I make a motion to approve the employee benefits to be sent to the select board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to improve the employee benefits to be sent to the Select Board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 9-0.
I don't know if you have the answer, or if you could get it for us, but it was something that did come up in a Facebook conversation.
Oh, God help us.
Out of public safety, could you let us know next meeting how many people actually have our health insurance?
Out of public safety.
'Cause I know most are not, I mean firefighters, EMS?
So I think in the fire department, I think there's 4
That actually take it?
that take it.
Okay.
Yep, because it's only offered to full-time employees. In the police department, I think it's all but 2.
Okay,
So, if I can get you more exact than that, but I think that's about what it is.
okay. I was just kind of curious,
Yeah.
because that was something that came up on, the school having health insurance put into their budget, and that the public safety's budgets didn't have those numbers.
Sure, so I think the context to that is, prior to my arrival, for reasons that we were never able to figure out, well, actually, we did figure out, I think we did figure out why they were done like that, is that the school, instead of having, most towns have, just like we'd had our benefits account, we have healthcare. It's in one line item, and because you have the economies of scale that some years it's high, some years it's low. Pat can attest to this. In the school budget, it was built into the school budget, unlike most other towns. And there's a handful of towns that it's not built into. And in essence, that gave the school flexibility or penalty if they had people going up or down in that, and that was always a fund that was used for a while. In the town side is that all of the town budgets falls under one healthcare cost. So basically in the town, there's 2 healthcare line items, one for all town employees and one for school. Again, normally that's just one item. Here it's 2. That's just how Carver operates. And then we did look at changing that, and we never went forward with it because the town negotiated bifurcated contract with all its employees, new hires, that go to 50-50, but the school did not do that. It stays at 75-25. So they agreed that they were going to maintain that there until and when they ever decide to change the split. Is that fair, Pat?
Yeah, it actually goes back a lot of years.
Yeah. Way before me.
Even before me back then too, is when the before the deregionalization, it was done that way in the budget, and then when it was deregionalized, and then the whole K-12 came in, it just stayed that way for I don't know what reason, but that's when I came in back in '93, and that's the way it was. And that's the way it's been.
Well, that would have made sense when it was regionalized, because you needed to have it as part of the regional package.
Correct.
And it just, nobody pulled it out when it centralized.
I will say, just for the record, as I've said for the last 2, maybe 3 years, is the school budget is very tight. Their accounting for healthcare is down to the person, the family. They're not in a position where they have 5 extra accounts that aren't being used. Those days are gone. So their budget is very transparent and very tight on many different levels, as ours is too. It's down there, so you don't have those wide swings anymore. Any other questions? Comments, concerns? We did get awarded the Greens Community Grant. I think that's $150,000 plus or minus. So we're going to be moving forward with Dave Siegentoff to make priorities, including these lights. It will become something different than the bulbs we have in here. We'll probably keep the same fixtures, but just change the guts of them, as well as other energy efficient issues in town that'll be upgraded with them.
We doing anything with the solar, that we discussed at town meeting with the solar carport stuff?
Yep, Jim is working on that also. That's one of his tasks that he got when he came here, so he's working on an RFP for those, to put those out. We also received a $99,000 grant for our radio tower, townwide radio tower system. If you recall, back in the fall, we had the police and the fire and the EMS come in here in DPW and talk about the townwide system. So we did receive a $99,000 grant that was put together by the fire department. And so that'll go in to help us move that along a little bit faster. down in the Water and Sewer down in the Water Department meeting tonight with the North Carver Water District. This past week, they upgraded the new generator. The new generator we got from a grant from the state to come in and install. We're now going to be auctioning off the old one. That is hopefully going to fetch a number north of $50,000, possibly up to $75,000. We have a $30,000 delta to pay for that piece. And that'll allow that operation to operate a lot more efficient than it was with, in essence, that old locomotive generator that was just oversized. It could power a small city, and it's very difficult to power a small city off of propane. It can't vaporize fast enough. So that has also happened, and I think that's about it.
Well, while we have you sitting up there, with the permission of the members, I'd like to skip ahead to the Covanta issue and the trash issue that we're going to discuss while we happen to have the town administrator here.
So just a quick little history is for the last 30, 40 years, because the South Carver landfill takes the ash from Covanta, is that an agreement was entered in with the three towns, Carver, Marion, Wareham, to allow for free trash disposal, basically. Covanta would take any of the material from the three towns and burn it for free. And they would also maintain the two transfer facilities, which they paid for. That contract, that agreement ends at the end of this calendar year. It is, and it partly is because the landfill is at capacity. Over the last few years, I have worked with the district to see if there was an opportunity to expand the landfill. Covanta was interested in expanding the landfill. Apparently, they did propose that about 10 years ago to Ray Pickles, who was heading up the district, and that was shot down. We thought it was a good idea to continue this process. We tried with Covanta support to do it, but the owners of the landfill did not want to see that expand anymore and would not give permission to expand them. So again, that's shut down. That is a huge deal the town has received. In any other town, you're paying hundreds of dollars for a transfer facility plus bags. It's just what the market rate is, or for private pickup of, $400 plus or minus, depending upon what service you get, is what it costs for garbage disposal. I mean, pretty much in today's age, you can think about in your budget, you should plan on something just shy of $10 per week for a normal family's garbage disposal to be. Obviously, if you have a big family, it could go up, but over a family of four, but that's just what today's cost is for getting rid of garbage. With that, the district, because they were subsidized to operate the facilities with the manpower of multiple personnel, the equipment, the capital costs, and Covanta was paying for all that. That was, again, great. But with the closure of that, when you start to look at operating a transfer facility, if I said landfill, I meant transfer facility, with at least 2.5 people, because it's the most thankless job around is to be the guy at the transfer facility. And you come in there and everybody thinks, well, I can throw whatever I want in here. And in Rochester, they do, because Covanta just gave up trying to figure that out. So you have contractors come in and just throw their 2x4s and bathroom remodeling jobs, small jobs, and they just throw them away in there. So now all of a sudden that waste has to go to the incinerator or be pulled out and burnt, but Covanta's just accepted that it's easier to do that than try to separate it and have their employees get yelled at. That's what it boils down to. Over in Marion, it's a little bit more restricted than it used to be in the past, where, you have to have your sticker, you have to make sure that you have the right material, and you throw that away. But where I was going with this is if a town resident comes in and says, well, I have a right to throw this in here, now all of a sudden you have one individual saying, no, you can't. The other individual is driven here with smelly garbage and says, I'm going to throw it away whether you like it or not. And a couple name calls get put in there. So it's a very thankless job. That being said, you always need to have 2 people there plus an extra person to do that. So then when you add in the benefits of those people, plus the insurance of the facility, the utilities of the facility, the operations of the facility, the snow plowing, and those type of things, let alone you add in the cost of the equipment and the operators that you need to have a CDL license to move the garbage back and forth to Covanta, because Covanta would pick up the stuff now. In the future, the district would have to do it. They ran the numbers, and as part of the district, they said it's not going to be cost effective for us to do this. So the district voted by a vote of 5-3 to cease operations of operating a transfer facility the end of December 31st, 2020. So that's the day, the last day the facility will be opened, and it'll be disposed of in one way, shape, or another, which the committee's going through right now. Having said that, the district is responsible for paying all of the retirement and OPEB benefits for the employees that it's had over the years, so it has that funding for that, as well as monitoring the landfill closeout, which could be 20 to 30 years. The testing has to be done each year, making sure it's compliance with DEP, and it's the obligation of the district to do that. So that's the ongoing cost that has to happen even without a landfill, without a transfer facility operations. Myself and the other town administrators, have basically stated that we don't want the district to come back and give the towns another bill. We'd rather keep the money in the district right now to pay for all these unfunded liabilities and all these future liabilities, and have it sit there until all of those costs are fully known. It may take 2 years before all those costs are fully known, but to keep that going out for the next 20 to 30 years, because I'd rather not have an expense that just pops up than have one-time money, then have to pay it back later, and I use the one-time money for something that then they have to come up with one-time money for that down the road. So that's been kind of the consensus with the town administrators, and kind of the direction that the committee has been moving forward with. I know there's been a lot of discussion on the Board of Selectmen with this. You can watch all the videos. There's one theme that comes out of the Board of Selectmen's meeting every night to another Board of Selectmen member there, Select Board, is that show us a business plan, show us the money, show us how setting one of these up or partnering with another community is not going to turn into the North Carver Water District, where all of a sudden the town is hit with a liability down the road because someone didn't properly calculate something, or you don't know what the numbers are. And part of that basis in the fact that right now we have probably about 2,000 stickers that have been sold in the town here. We're $10 now, our stickers are that. So we have many families that are buying 3 of them, 4 of them, for every car in the house. We have some people that are buying them just because they want the beach sticker. It doesn't matter why they do it. So that's what's been sold. In surveys, in actual hand counts of people coming in and out of the gate down at the Rochester and the Covanta and the Marion facility, I think run over 6 or 8 weeks, might have been 9 weeks. We had security guards, in essence, standing there counting every car from every town coming in. If you didn't have a sticker, they kicked you out. But if you had a sticker from Carver, Marion, or Wareham, they were making notes, license plates, who was coming in. During those 6 to 9 weeks, the average number of cars coming in from Carver were somewhere, I think the number was between just under, call it 700 to 900 cars. So that's what the users were per week. Per week, yep. Now of that, what we don't know and we have no way of determining is, did someone come in there every day? The contractor that I mentioned, the small contractor doing a small remodeling job, was he coming in once a day? Was he coming in twice a day? We don't know. We don't know if people coming in every 3 days. We just know that during that week, or those weeks, it averaged between 700 and 900 people coming into the facility.
We don't know how many of those 700 were duplicates.
That is correct. That's what I'm saying. But even if you just take the 900 that are there, you take the high number, that's what we believe, and that's what the district director believes is a realistic number, somewhere between the 700 and 900 as to what you would have of interest. Now again, that interest is based upon $10 for a sticker. And the case in point is in Plymouth, there used to be 3 different transfer facilities, and these were set up as enterprise funds. An enterprise fund, which is what the North Carver Water District is, requires that utility, whether it's a transfer utility or whether it's a water district utility, that it has to collect enough funds, charge enough fees to pay for its expenses. So using the Plymouth model is that for years it was working fine. Then all of a sudden, millennials, whatever it may be, decided they didn't like going to the transfer facility. They went to call up dual income family, says, I'd rather pay somebody to move my garbage than me to go down there and wait in line once a week. Okay, so people stopped buying stickers. Well, when you stopped buying stickers, you still had to balance the books, so then the sticker prices went up to offset the lost revenue. As the sticker prices went up, people says, well, you know what, I'm gonna make that switch to having a private hauler because my sticker price has gone up. And you run into this cycle. So it went from 3 facilities down to 1 facility in Plymouth. And because you weren't getting the buy-in there, and the town had to subsidize that for several years. Now it's actually surviving on its own with 1 facility, but again, it's the town of Plymouth with 1 facility. So that's the fear with that has yet to be proven to the select board, and they've asked every meeting this has been, show us the numbers. Show us how you can guarantee that you're going to have 900 people, or as the one individual said, you can have more than 900 people come there, and they're going to buy the stickers and they're going to buy the bags. Because if you don't, then the town has to pay for it. And as you all know, in our budget discussions, we're in a pay-go system. If you need additional money that's not in this budget, you got to cut something. So figure out where you're going to cut. You're going to cut public safety. You're going to cut the education program. What are you going to cut? And that's what the selectmen have been saying. Just show us the numbers to prove that we're not going to be in a position where we have to cut. Sure, would everyone like to maintain a transfer facility? Absolutely. But have the numbers ever been demonstrated that it can work without having a negative impact on the town? They haven't. And right now, based upon calculations and calls that the Board of Health Department has done, our inspections department, more than half the people in Carver right now use private service, private haulers. And in addition to that, we also have many people in town that could be growing cranberries, and they have 6 different brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, and guess what? They all bring the garbage to the dumpster that's located where they do their picking, and they throw all their household dumpster into the big dumpster, and away it goes. So that's where it is. Do we want to keep as many options on the table? Yes, we do. Am I in touch with multiple towns to see if they'll sell tickets to the town of Carver? Yes, I am, and some have shown interest in that. Have I been talking to all of the private haulers to see if they can give, you know, what they can guarantee rates for the town of Carver? Yes, I've gone through that process too. And again, just at the end of the day, from a policy standpoint, we want to make sure people have options. And that's kind of where we are.
The whole reason that I put this on the agenda for tonight is because this has been an up and down discussion for months and months and months, and the numbers are all over the place. First it was a $10 sticker, then it was a $250 sticker, then it could be a $500 sticker, then it was $10 a week for a private hauler, then it was we needed 1 private hauler for the whole town, which means we put a wedding ring on, and it's everywhere. And the town representative is a 3-person.
There's 3 members from each town that represent the district.
So the 5-3 vote assumes one of the members was not present for that vote.
Correct. One of the members from Wareham was not there, who historically has always been stating the places should close down. But he is an employee of the town, and he may be rethinking that, but that's historically what he voted. Bill is on, not to put Bill on the spot, but Bill is one of the 3 members of the town. And the other thing I'll just say before I turn it over to Bill is that last year at the annual town meeting, Bill, you and Dave Robinson and John Cotter, we put on an article at town meeting to see if the town wanted staff and you guys to go forward and see if we could negotiate a better rate for the entire town to have 1 hauler.
Mike, I thought that we just voted at town meeting whether or not they want us to look into it.
To investigate it.
To look
Yeah,
into
to
it.
investigate.
Yep.
The
Right,
town
and it
meeting
was
said no.
voted down.
And they
Yeah.
voted it down. They didn't want to look at us.
Right.
Yeah, I thought we should.
Consider the option and do the due diligence. No, don't do the due diligence.
Right.
Because no matter how you cut that cake, as soon as the wedding ring goes on with the low bid guy and he puts the small operators out of business, and now you're sitting there licking your chops saying, you got nowhere else to go, here's the new price. And the way they wanted to do it was gonna fund it through, the town would pay it, and we were gonna get an assessment on, a surcharge on our tax bill. So that's even worse, because you know what it takes to get out of that deal? I don't want you to come get my trash. Well, now you gotta get a hold of the town, to have the town stop to pick up at your house, but, you know, it's still on your tax bill, and then if enough people bail out of it, then the contractor decides this isn't worthwhile, so the rate's gotta change, and there's always something in the contract, because those numbers are based on X. So when those numbers fluctuate, the surcharges start. So I just didn't wanna do that. We've had a free ride for 20 years. If it cost us double what the projections are, we're still way ahead of the game on what we'd have been paying if we were a normal town that had trash pickup for the last 20 years. So we need to find a solution to this, and the only reason that I wanted to bring it up as a FinCom is because sooner or later, we're gonna end up having to deal with some of this stuff. And I'd like to hear from Bill, and I mentioned Bob Belbin, and I'd like to hear from Dave Robertson as to what their thoughts are on this, so that we have some idea.
John Carter. John was on the,
But John's not on it now.
Dave Roberts is not on there. John's on there.
John's on, okay. So I'd like to hear from the three of them, so that, you know, we have an idea of what we can do as a committee to support the best idea that's gonna work with the select board, with town meeting members, and the endorsement of the FinCom, which I still believe is an important aspect of the whole thing, because I don't wanna see another North Carver Water District where we're writing a check every year because we're nice guys.
Yeah, I think it's important, and as the Board of Selectmen have says, they want quantitative data. This is a straight numbers game. You take your numbers, you make your assumptions, you agree on the assumptions, and the numbers are what they are. And then with that, you have to run sensitivity analysis. If you don't have as many people or the rates go up, what are you gonna do? I mean, Bill, not to put you on the spot, but I mean, you've been a big proponent is you don't want people in your trash. The government in your trash.
don't want what?
Government in your trash business.
That's right. No,
Well, what do you think is the best solution, just from an abstract? I'm not looking for concrete data till we sit down with the three of it, but just throw it out there. What do you think is one of the best solutions?
if I had all the money in the world, I envision a place where anybody can take their trash. We've talked about it over there at the subcommittee. You weigh it in, you weigh it out, you drop off. There's a hazardous waste place. This is sort of a dream thing. Mike Camara has got something going over there.
That's ABC Disposal right next to
ABC
that.
Disposal across the street from Rochester. And he's got this sort of huge, expensive Lego thing to handle the trash. Last time I was in there, I couldn't even hardly see that thing. It wasn't operating.
One in the building?
Inside his building.
Yeah, I've been in there. You
Yeah.
go over the scale and you go out and the thing that's
Yeah.
nice about that location is I've done it. You can dump, pressure treated lumber and stuff like that, and I got a little mini dump trailer, so I dump it, you come back out over the scale, but I never get out of there for less than $90. Everything I
Well,
brought
I
over
mean-
that scale has been $85, $90.
Yeah. Well, I've taken my pickup truck full of stuff, and it's usually around $50 or so, but it's a small amount. But I envision I don't know, call it a 22nd century place where anybody in here, contractor or not, can bring this stuff in, dump it. It's not high-tech bulldozers, grind the stuff up like Lokes does up there. They can put a whole house in a bin and
Oh,
grind
sure.
it up, minimize, pull out all the recyclables up. But that's gonna take someone with a lot of money, and Mike doesn't have the room over there to do it. Asked him, he doesn't have a place where people can come in and dump it, and then it's sort of pre-processed before it gets to that building.
Right.
Isn't he doing some shredding inside now, aren't they? Didn't they put a shredder in?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so they're loading the live floors off the shredder, so they're able to compact it a little bit.
A lot of that stuff goes over to his place in New Bedford. I don't
Right,
know
as well
what
as New
happens
Bedford
with it.
Waste, yeah.
a question, in all the meetings that we've been to over there, and it just occurred to me now, why didn't Covanta re-up the contract? I mean, the contracts end and then they make a new
Yep.
contract?
No, the issue there was that they tried to, twice. I helped them the second time, but we couldn't get the landowner where the landfill is located on to allow us for expansion.
To put the ash?
Correct.
So it just, but they're still burning, what are they doing with the ash?
But they found other places, and they've already entered into long-term contracts with those other places, so it's never coming back here.
I think Feeney's bringing it to somewhere down on 195 or down the Cape, isn't it?
Boren's taking a lot of it.
Yeah.
So why would that cause them to not still use the transfer station? Discussion we could have had in one of the meetings, but I'm just thinking about now. They still get the trash, they still burn it, they still get rid of the ash, but they get a new place.
Because they have people paying them. I mean, Boston's paying them nearly $100 a ton to bring material down there. It may not be Boston, it might be Quincy or Braintree. Somebody's paying.
Hingham comes down here, they're down here every day.
Yeah, it's like $100 a ton, $90 a ton that they're getting paid to burn the garbage, and then at the same time, then they sell the energy onto the grid, so they're getting paid for the energy. So they don't want to take anything for free. You know, if you're getting, their fuel, it was the fuel before, and they needed fuel to burn the plant. Now people are paying them to take their fuel, and they're using the fuel to power the plant. So it's a great economic model for them. In the past, the fuel was the hard thing to find, so that's why they wanted it for free.
They could have charged a fee to use the transfer station too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
was that
No, they just said we're out of the operations.
just that one?
Yeah, and they don't own it, it's the district that owns it.
So, the reason I brought it before this committee is I'd like to entertain your thoughts on requesting the members of this committee to speak with the members of the Carver, Marion, Wareham Waste District at either the 16th or the 23rd. We'll get into the next meeting date, but I actually am leaning to the 23rd because I think that would just work a little bit better, but what's everybody's thoughts on this? Is this premature? What do you think?
Well, was the invitation already made, or is this the?
No, I have not made the invitation. It's on here for discussion only.
Okay.
So it would require, I would want a vote from the board, and I will acquiesce to whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, I'd like to hear, so this three-person committee, are they asked to play sort of offense with the vision of the trash in Carver, or are they playing defense reacting to?
I think what we're trying to determine at this point is we're trying to get some clarification on, because from my perception, and again, from what I've heard talked about in public session, as well as, God bless social media, the numbers are all over the place.
Right.
So I think, Pat, to answer your question is, the three members, Bill, John, and Bob, their job is to serve on the Regional Refuge District as 3 of the 9 members. That district, that task is only focused on that district. What's the long-term future of that district? The district's determined it's going to shut down its facility because of X, Y, and Z. As it relates to the town of Carver, is that, as I mentioned before, I've been talking to all the towns, I've been talking to and sending out notes to all the haulers to look at options, to provide options for the town. The town meeting was very clear. We don't want a single hauler. We don't want you to spend resources on that. But having said that, I'm trying to put together a list of everything that can be put together without the town of Carver having liability for operating the facility. You know, you have many people that say, well, we pay too many taxes and it should be done in there. Well, the issue with taxes is you get what you pay for. And right now, you see the budget, you know where the tax money goes in there. You want to add services, like Marion decided it was going to go out and hire Waste Management to come in and do curbside pickup for this. They did an operational override, and they put that money into paying for that. So the people of Marion says, we want to pay more in taxes, but as part of that new taxes, we want to get curbside pickup. So they chose to do. The direction I have from the town, from last year's town meeting vote, is we didn't want to look at a single hauler. You know, so we're not looking at providing curbside, particularly when we have more than half of the people have private service anyway.
Yep.
So we're just looking at options, putting those together.
So, sorry. Effective 1/1/21, if I just go to the transfer station today, that's all I do. as an example. I need a private hauler come January 1st, 2021, I can no longer go?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, 2021, the gates will be locked.
And for the record, I have a dump permit, never been to the transfer station in my life.
We thank you
get
for your
one every
$10.
So I donate the $10,
That's right.
and I've never been there. In fact, I think last year we donated 20, put one in each car.
Yeah.
The reason why last year we had it at 50
Well,
is
it's a
because
parking permit.
we did have to pay, the district was asking the towns to chip in. Because when I took over the district, it was bankrupt with the whole Ray Pickle stuff and all that stuff, and now we've turned over, when it's all said and done, we'll turn over $1 million surplus. Now, the surplus is because Covanta's paying for it, and it's amazing what can happen when you control where the expenses go. You can actually make money with the whole thing. So anyway, so that's where that money's coming from, with the goal of paying off all of our liabilities and not having this be a drain anymore. And that's why this year, when I think Bob talked about keeping it at 50 or going more, I said, but we can't do that because the district has already said we're not going to ask for money from the towns. So how can we charge 50 when we know we're never going to have to pay anything out, based upon a vote that happened from the district? And that's why the board, I think, Alan, you might have made the motion, voted to make it $10 this year. So it's a bargain this year, enjoy it, but next year it's going to be, you got to do something different.
I just think it's something that would end up being interesting to the committee, as well as beneficial to the town, to have a little more clarity and, you know,
There's,
some more input.
Another-
Hold on a second, George, you had something?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Bill wanted, but is there any way, since we know that December 31st is drop dead day, period, is there any way for the town to organize like a job fair for these haulers to come in and present their case, if people want to come by and talk to the individuals, each individual company? I don't know how many companies come into town to haul it out, but
And that'd be good.
try and do anything on
Yeah.
Facebook. You're getting 27 different cost factors, and it doesn't make any sense. But if we set up some kind of round robin, for anything better, a job fair, and let people come in and talk to the individual haulers, and get the best deal that they can get, sign up. But we're gonna need to do that probably in September or October.
Well, that could
because we're
actually
gonna
be a
have-
great thing to tie in with maybe Carver Night Out.
Well, yes, we can, that's a good thing for Carver today now, but that's in essence what we're trying to do right now, George, is instead of Facebook posting stuff, we're trying to get each one of the companies to commit to a number for 2021, and then we'll put that out on government stationery that says, here's what these 4 companies that are serving Carver are saying, here's the website for each one of them, pump in this code, and this is what the deal they're gonna offer you. And so you have that in one source to make a decision from.
Yeah, so that's basically the same thing.
Same thing,
Just
yeah.
don't get talked to.
Bill?
Because right now, I go twice a week.
I don't go at all.
But,
They back down my
I make up for
driveway.
you.
we have to
Say
find
again?
something else to do in those 2 days.
They back down my driveway. God bless Nauset.
How big is your dumpster in your yard?
I don't have one, I got barrels.
There was also,
And they put them right back where they got them from. They're not all over the lawn, they're not out in the street, they back down the driveway and they put them right back against the brick building. Right where they got them from.
I think I know where they are.
I'm very content.
There was also a discussion, I know Wareham wanted to stay, be part of keeping the transfer station open, and one of the guys talked to me about it. I think Bob I thought initially when he first started, he was not for it, but now he is for it. But, so there's that question out there too, whether it's.
You're being lobbied.
Marion definitely doesn't want to be part of it, and Wareham does. They're wondering whether Carver would. And
Right. Yep.
I voted against it. I think you're not interested. I think it should be a private. The whole thing should be a private enterprise.
I agree with
Bill, I think what you're seeing is you're seeing people lobbying you to change your vote.
What's that?
You're seeing people lobby you to change your vote.
Oh, yeah, had a long discussion over the phone, but.
Yep.
Hold on a second, Adam. Did you want to say something,
If it's allowed.
Mr. Selectman? Of course it's allowed, you're a selectman. We'd let you anyway. 'cause
I'm a citizen. Tomorrow I'll be selected.
Okay.
At 7 o'clock.
It's just kind of a word of caution that I got when I first read your agenda for tonight. I think like most of everybody here, we do happen to read social media, even though we try not to. And there have been no hard facts presented out there, which is what the select board keeps asking for, as Mr. Malinowski said. There's a lot of, I've calculated, or, there's a figure of 1,800 stickers that'll be bought.
Well, we don't know that.
Exactly, that's my point. So I would be leery, we need to come up, I'm hoping the select board can get some good hard numbers that are documented, not, well, I figured it out. There has to be a study done, and I would just caution you, I think it's great to get the information, but again, I'd be careful, make sure it's trust but verify. Ronald Reagan was a great man.
But no matter how we do this, it's always going to be a we don't know what we don't know until we implement a plan. And then there's no way of knowing how many stickers. There's no way of knowing what the end cost is, and this is what got us into all this trouble in North
But when you're
Carolina.
starting off with somebody, with a claim that 1,800 stickers, and the survey over the 6 to 9 weeks only showed
Right.
7 to 9, that doesn't come out to 1,800
That's
stickers for the, sold in the town of Carver. Now, if that was all 3 towns, then I could go along with it, but, where did this number come from? So that's what you have to be careful of. If any number you're given, you really got to dig down, and so far, the select board has not been given those type of numbers, and we hope to get it.
I appreciate that.
So, just my thought.
Yeah, and again, just to add to that is, in any analysis like this, you make assumptions. And there's nothing wrong with an assumption. What's important with an assumption is what's the backup?
Right.
What's the justification? Can 11 people sit around and say, okay, I realize we're making an assumption, but I think you're too high, too low, based upon what? And that's the thing, is getting some definitive quantitative data that's down there. I mean, tonight I raised 2 issues. I raised the legal and the veterans, and I just put some disclaimers out there, and also the town clerk, is that, again, everything's good, I'm just concerned about those, so I raised those issues. These numbers need to have backup, and
Right.
yet we have got, there's none.
I agree.
Where do the haulers take their stuff to? Is it ABC? I mean, if someone comes along.
So haulers take it in different locations. Not everybody goes to Covanta. Waste Management has its landfill in Middleborough. They move stuff over to Middlefield. ABC has its stuff. Nauset, I don't know where they're taking it. They could take it over to Bourne because they're from the Cape.
Goes to Bourne, I think they have another landfill they use in the Cape.
Yeah, and they probably have a discount down there. So these different haulers take it in different locations
That's
based
wherever
upon
they get the
whatever.
best deal,
That's right.
because they're doing the same thing. They're paying by the ton over the scale.
Right.
I think Nauset is taking the Carver stuff to Covanta because it's still free to do that, which means that Nauset's cost to the residents.
Well, let me just emphasize, it's not free.
Not free, but
It is free for Carver, but Carver also receives $30 to $40 a ton
Right.
from the haulers
Right.
that are doing it. So for the privilege of picking up Carver trash, there's been money that's been coming back to Carver as a revenue source that's not in our budget next year, because we're not going to have it next year. It's only half in the budget. So they're still paying something, but if they're paying $30 or $40 a ton, the going rate at Covanta is $80 to $100 a ton.
Right.
So we have had in the past a lot of garbage from other towns, not the 3 I mentioned, but others that these haulers were bringing to Covanta, saying it was from Carver to get the $30 or $40 rate, knowing that they're charging their customers the $80 or $90 or $100 rate. So,
Adam?
So the homeowner's still paying. Yeah.
And which I was gonna, you raised a good point, Bill, and I'm glad you asked it, because there has been a lot of conversation about the fact that the Covanta landfill is gonna close. Therefore, every private hauler's price is gonna go through the roof. And I don't know that that's the case. It's a matter of supply and demand, how many haulers are out there.
Yep.
Where they dump, what they choose to do now that Carver citizens essentially have one less option, right? The prices could increase slightly, and I think most private haulers' prices have increased slightly over the last few years. One question I had though, and I think it was important to point that out, Bill, so thanks for bringing that up, but one of the things that I'm struggling to understand as a layperson sitting at home reading Facebook. What control does the 9 representatives that represent the district have over what happens to the district or to the individual towns versus what town meeting controls? For instance, the district votes 5-3 to cease operations. What control do the individual towns via town meeting have to stop that, prevent that, change that? Is it, how does the dynamic between the district representatives and town meeting affect the outcome?
So you have about 4 questions there, and let me make sure I get them all down. The first is, I want to talk about the garbage price, because yes, Covanta's, we're not going to get the $30 or $40 a ton discount, okay? Now, keep in mind, as I said, it's $80 or $100. The average home, and you can Google this and figure out what it is, you know, based upon the family or whatever, is going to use a ton, ton and a half. Maybe a large family of 6 people may use 2 tons. Figure out what that number is. So when you're looking at the cost, and if you have a family of 4 right now and you're using a ton of garbage in your waste management and you're charging $400, of that $400 fee, you know, 60 or 80 of that is disposal. 3/4 of that money is the truck, the people, the dispatch, the maintenance, the fuel, and the replacement of everything I just mentioned. So these haulers, the majority of their cost is in the operations, not in the disposal. Now, yes, if the cost goes from $40 to $100, that's $60 for that ton of garbage spread over the year. So, you know, when you're looking at the numbers, think about how that's going to be. That's $1 a day that should impact the cost that's going to be there. And Dave Roberts and I had a, you know, detailed discussion with Holland before they sold out the waste management as to where the cost was going to be. And they said, by the district closing down, it's going to have an adjustment in our cost, but the bulk of our cost, people, labor, equipment, insurance, blah, 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 blah. All right, so that's that piece that's there. There are other options that are out there. Down on the Cape, the Bourne, they're trying to increase their landfill size. We've had people come to Carver looking to build an additional landfill. Didn't work out through permitting and environmental reasons. And then there's all different types of ways of getting garbage out of the state, and that's going to be change the market. No matter what, garbage disposal cost is going to be going up. Do I see it going up to $200? No. There's going to be a fuel charge added to wherever it goes. To your other question regarding, which has 3 parts, to the district. The district is in charge of operating the district, those 9 people. They can control hiring, firing, anything within their powers. They have the sole control, and no one can tell them otherwise what to do. So the town has no control. Any individual town has no control over what the district does, because there's 6 votes in one way and 3 in the other. So the district controls the day-to-day operations of the facility. The district says it's closing down, it's closing down. That's what it's doing. We're not going to take garbage anymore because we can't afford to do it. The towns have a choice of leaving the district. And in leaving the district, it's a 2-step process by town meeting. And Marion has taken the step. The first step is town meeting authorized the town of Marion to negotiate with the district the pros and cons of leaving the district and what an exit strategy would look like. When and if they ever negotiate that, they then have to bring that back to the Marion town meeting for a second vote. So it's a 2-step process. First is to begin negotiations, second is to leave. I am going to recommend at town meeting, and to the Board of Selectmen, I've already recommended this, is the town of Carver follow the same thing that Marion did, is let's take the first vote so that we can explore the possibilities of leaving the district that we choose to. If we never leave, that's fine. Still need a second vote to do it, but I don't want to be in a position where shit hits the fan and we got to come back and schedule 2 town meetings, one right after another, to negotiate and get out of there. It's get the one that says, okay, negotiate. You don't have to go from there. So I'm going to recommend that. What is being proposed to bring back to the towns is the enabling legislation that was created for the district back 20 or 30 years ago, I forget what the exact time frame is, is antiquated, it's non-functional, it's before computers, okay? So it needs to be updated. So what the district has done is saying, listen, we know Marion definitely wants to leave, we know Carver's on the fence. Let's go back to each one of the town meetings and say, okay, the district has voted that we are not going to do any more operations on the facility anymore. And we want the towns to modify and adjust our enabling legislation, or what powers we have, to allow us to maintain the future liabilities and the closing of the landfill for the next 20 years or 30 years. So it's just a restatement of organizational powers, is what that is. If one of the towns votes that down, I know that somebody is proposing that we vote it down, well, you vote it down, okay? Then that just means you're back to the antiquated solutions. And, you know, it's still it's not solid as to what the future of the district's gonna be, because could 9 other people come back and say, hey, you know what? I got a great idea. I wanna start a transfer facility like Bill said. And you know what? I can do it. And you know what? After we 9 people do it, we get to send a bill to each one of the towns, and guess what? The towns have to pay it, no matter what the cost is, because that's what the legislation is. And that's how I got involved in here, is I had Ray Pickles come and say, hey, you owe this money. I said, oh, okay, why? Well, because you have to pay it for the district. I said, okay, show me the enabling legislation.
Who asked you why?
Ray Pickles.
No, but who asked you why do we have to pay it?
Oh, you did. And I did. And we said, why do we have to pay this? And he says, because you're required to by law. I said, okay, well, give me some backup. I don't have to give you any backup. I don't have to pay a bill unless I have backup, because that's a state law too. And hence they tried to sue us, and that's how that whole thing started that was down there. But my point being is this thing could, with a different 9 people, you could be back to the Ray Pickles era that you just recently were. And they can send the town a huge bill, and you have to pay it. And they can borrow money too. They actually have the right of going out and bonding money. So those 9 people can go out and say, hey, listen, I want to do Bill's grandiose idea, Al Gore idea. I'll come back to that in a minute. And can I tell them? All right, I'm not going to say it.
Never live that one down.
No, I know. All right, well, it's our secret.
That's all right.
Is that, you know, hey, here's $5 million. We're going to issue a bond to do it. Towns have to pay it. Bonding agency says, well, yeah, the enabling legislation says they have to do it. Could happen.
Right.
And that's why redoing the new rules and regulations eliminates that possibility, which is what the district is trying to do, and bring back to the towns.
Right.
Did I answer all 4 of your questions?
You did amply.
So, getting back to this, I assume by this lively discussion that this is something that we want to continue to take up.
Yep.
I think
We all
not
have
to be-
trash.
Yeah, not to be melodramatic about it, but I think it's incumbent upon us to do it. I think we're obligated to do it. As the finance committee for the town, I don't think decisions of this magnitude should be lobbied over Facebook. And unfortunately, right now, that's what's happening.
That's right.
We have,
And there's a lot of scare tactics, and that's the problem I have with it. Is the sky is falling scare tactics, and it's misinformation, and it's opinionated, and there's no hard numbers.
I couldn't agree more. And the opinions are coming from folks who are in a position where they should have data, where data is available. As a citizen in town, you would feel somewhat safe, trusting and relying on the individuals who should be most informed. So when those individuals that are most informed are sort of betraying that trust and providing less than sufficient evidence or facts to back up their statements or their opinions, it creates a mess that we then have to sift through at town meeting, where folks show up at town meeting expecting to vote one way based on the information that they've gotten, only to find out that the information they got wasn't accurate or was insufficient.
Or they don't believe what they're told at town meeting, and they choose to believe what they've learned on Facebook.
Couldn't agree more. And that's why I think
that just causes more problems.
That's why I think we're obligated to vet this out as much as possible as the finance committee and get to the bottom of the specifics and make sure that the public is well aware of the facts and not what's being advocated for on Facebook. I think and I said this on Facebook, I think it is fiscally irresponsible for representatives of this town that represent the district to go on Facebook and advise the constituency to vote one way based on scare tactics and incomplete information. And unfortunately, that's what we're facing.
That's exactly what it is.
Whether the district stays or not is not up to the town meeting though, right? It's the district is gonna make the decision with the different towns.
That's right.
And they're talking about disbanding. I mean, that's a separate entities.
But no matter how we cut this cake, this is gonna be an issue that the town's gonna have to deal with.
Well, just
And
wait.
it's all in how big a check you wanna write, whether you do it personally with a private entity, or you do it publicly, or we go and try to find a way between two other towns and buy another 50 acres, which I don't think you'd ever get permitted for a landfill in this day and age anyway. So, you know, this is not gonna go away.
No,
So it's something that needs to have, and I think there are a tremendous amount of people in this town that have no idea as to what the hell's going on here. Because they can't get straight information. They get a lot of rhetoric, and they get a lot of, well, I'm not sure, but it could be. Well, could be's scare the hell out of people. Could be a ladder truck, and that made you concerned, because, you know, what are we doing? So I'd like to see us, I don't want to be here till midnight, I'd like to see us entertain a date, and if everybody's good with the 23rd, I think that puts it off. We have the 3rd with the select board, it's a joint meeting. That would give us a couple of weeks to, and then the 23rd of March would be really the,
isn't there another meeting?
What's on the agenda for the 27th or 26th?
for the what?
24th,
We have,
this
the
month.
24th. This month, we have another meeting this month.
This month, that's right, we have operations and maintenance coming before us, and I think that's it.
But I mean, that's only, so far, for what we've seen.
Well, I didn't want to
Budget-
jam them, I didn't want to jam Bill, Bob Belbin, and John Carter in asking them to come before us 2 weeks from today. I didn't want to put that gun to their head. I can,
Well, not for nothing, it seems like they've already made some decisions if they're voting.
huh?
At least they could present that part of it, and let's get this out in the open a little bit more.
Okay.
But the longer we put this off, December's just around the, you know.
That's right, no, it is,
corner. People have gotta make
it's
it.
coming fast.
think-
So are we okay as a board then, and we'll invite this for the 24th, and let them say it's a bad night for them, they can't make it?
Yeah.
Place to put our trash.
Sooner the better, that's less.
I need a motion.
I make a motion to invite the members of
I'd
the
like you to name them.
Bob Belbin, John Carter, and Bill Duggan
Okay.
to the
On
meeting on the 24th,
the 24th of
February 2020.
Thank you.
Alan, maybe if we can do the O&M department at 7, and then you have this discussion 7:30?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's do
Have
that
the
for
agenda?
7:30.
Second the motion?
Motion made and seconded to invite Select Board Member Bob Belbin, Bill Duggan from our committee, and John Carter to our February 24th meeting at 7:30 to discuss the Carver, Marion, Wareham Refuse District. Is that correct?
Yep.
Aren't they, they're a committee within themselves, just name the committee and the 3 people that are on that committee.
I just did.
Not so, no, yeah, I know, but you mentioned select board member, and then the other.
Yeah, he's just-
They're
He's
individual.
not showing up here as a select board.
No, no,
member.
no.
He's showing up here as part of that committee.
I was
That's
gonna
fine.
ask
You
that,
want-
George.
All right, we'll strike the Select Board member. Good girl. And this is for the purpose of reviewing the finances and impact of the town budget with a formal request for a business plan for review. So we'd like that to, and that'll be in a letter. And I'll send the invitation letter out, I'll CC Michael on it, and I'll send it to the entire board at the same time, so that everybody will be on the same page. Good? Motion was made and seconded. Is there any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimously carried.
Alan, then we have the 25th, which is the joint meeting with the selectmen.
I thought it was the 3rd.
Is it 3rd?
We had it down for the 3rd of March.
The 3rd of March? Oh, no. Okay. that's the case, then I'm misspoken.
That's what I had here. I had,
Okay,
next meeting was Select Board on March 3rd. Our next meeting is the 24th,
yep, that's fine.
so we're good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because then, no, that's perfect.
Okay. We pretty much beat that to death.
Am I all done,
Um,
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry?
Am I all done?
Yes, I'd like a motion to table the discussion on the grant program dates just because it's 9:15.
I make a motion to table the grant program updates.
Motion made and seconded to table the updates for the grant program. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
George?
Either one of us.
I'll tell you very quickly, you have it in your packet, the grant program. The highlighted yellow is where, this is not our current grant program. This is changes that I've made to it. It's highlighted in yellow. I'd like you to look that over and then bring it with you at the next meeting and we'll take it up then. Just some of the dates are a little bit out of whack as far as how they fall. So that's the only thing, that was all we were gonna discuss, so. The minutes of the January 27th meeting. It's just quite a book. Mary Ann did a fabulous job. Thank you, Mary Ann. As usual. When we're ready, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from, sorry, whatever day that
January
was.
27th.
January 27th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes for January 27th as written. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 9-0, and I believe everybody was here.
Oh.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. 8-0.
That's none of his.
8-0-1. Cool. Next meeting date we already covered. Has everybody been doobies and given me their copy of the signed harassment policy? I have everybody's? Thank you.
Does this mean we can harass? or
Yes.
we can't?
Yes, this is the license to harass.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Thought you'd like that. Actually, I got my copy right here. I guess I better include it. Committee member updates. I'll let everybody else have a shot at this. Anybody?
I was actually going to bring up something that is already on the agenda, which was the MMA breakfast.
Well, good. I'll tell you what.
I've actually already registered for it.
This.
Yes.
So that was what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
Too, but you can have at it.
So on, what day was it? I put it in my calendar.
6th of March.
March
It's
6th.
at the fire
yep.
station.
March 6th, there's the MMA legislative breakfast. It's over at the fire station. There's no charge for it. It starts at 8 a.m. I found a lot of good information when we went to the
Yeah, we
MMA
went last
conference,
year.
and you know,
It's good. You get Danish and a coffee, and I mean it's right here this year. Last
Yeah.
year it was in Halifax.
I think so. Yeah,
Halifax, yep.
And it was good. And this year it's right around the corner, so, and it's a freebie, so. I plan on going. Anyone that would like to go, you signed up online?
Yeah, I signed up online, so
So anyone that wants to go is more than welcome to either shoot me an email, and I'll register you, or,
actually, if you just forward this, then they can just click and do it
I
themselves.
think I did. Did I not forward this to everybody?
I don't know.
You might have.
I thought I
You
did.
You did email us.
But I may
Where
not
is it
have.
being held?
I
The
think
fire
if they register
station, the Carver
themselves,
fire station.
I think if they register themselves, then you have to set up a,
I have an account, so maybe that's why.
yeah, that's why. So if you want to go, I'll send you this. I think you've got it, but you have your copies there.
You did send it to us on Wednesday.
I thought so.
I'm gonna go, I'm gonna tell you right now.
Anyone else?
We registered individually.
Alan will.
Yeah, just send me a confirmation and I'll save it and then we'll register everybody.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I didn't get it on Wednesday.
The other thing I have is anyone that is interested, Wednesday night, this coming Wednesday night at 6 p.m., Old Colony has their annual budget meeting. Usually you go, Bill. I think you've gone.
No, I usually try not to, as my husband's the chair of the school
Thought
committee.
you went.
No, you
one
went.
year.
No, I don't go because
Okay. In any case, it's at 6 PM. They got great cookies. Because the.
or their brownies are really
Oh, their
delicious too.
brownies, Yeah, they make good stuff. It's their budget presentation, and they really do a great job on their budget and stuff. And it's open to anyone on the finance committee that wants to go. I am going.
When is it?
Wednesday,
This
day
week?
after tomorrow, Wednesday,
I'm unable to go, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the 12th.
Can't make
Can't make it Wednesday? Bowling night?
12?
The 12th. Wednesday is the 12th,
Oh, the 12th.
yes.
No, I got that Carver, Marion, Wareham thing.
Oh, it's at 6
That-
PM.
Yep.
So anyone that wants to go, I'll see you there.
Bring me
Usually
some
you go
cookies
too,
then.
you've been before.
I've been before, but I can't make this one. I'll be having a medical procedure.
I think you have that in your, packet, so you'll know about that. We did that, we did that, we tabled that. So that's it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I didn't know if anybody else was done yet.
I have to pick up my kid.
I guess you're in a hurry. So motion made to adjourn. Did anybody else have any other comments or discussion? We can go another half an hour or so. There was no second on the motion anyway.
Second.
Oh, there's the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night, everybody.
Good night.